You are sleeping. Not well, of course, because this is medieval Europe, and good sleep is mostly reserved for rich people, cats, and possibly nobody else. You are lying on a rough pile of straw that has the softness of old broom bristles. The room smells faintly of smoke, wet wood, and human disappointment. Outside, the night is still black. The village is quiet except for a dog barking somewhere far away and a drunk man losing an argument with gravity. And then, someone starts pounding on your door. Not a polite knock. Not the kind that says, "Good morning, neighbor." This is the kind of pounding that says your day is about to become historically terrible. Before you even have time to sit up, the wooden latch bursts open and 3 men step inside carrying lanterns. Their boots drag mud across your floor. One of them is the local bailiff. The other 2 are built like men who solve most problems by hitting them. No one smiles, which is never a fantastic sign. You blink into the light, still half asleep, hair looking like a frightened bird's nest, trying to understand why armed strangers are in your house before sunrise. You do not get an explanation. You get grabbed. A rough hand yanks you by the arm so hard your shoulder nearly pops. Another man starts tying rope around your wrists like he has done this many times before, which, to be fair, he probably has. You finally ask the obvious question. What did I do? This is a reasonable thing to ask. Unfortunately, medieval law is not built around reasonable things. The bailiff mutters something vague about accusations, complaints, and orders from the Lord. None of it is helpful. Could be theft. Could be unpaid tax. Could be poaching a rabbit 3 months ago. Could be that your neighbor said you insulted him in public. It could be that someone with more money than you simply pointed in your direction. The details are apparently a luxury you are not entitled to. And just like that, your life changes. No court summons. No lawyer. No friendly officer reading you your rights. Those have not been invented yet. Instead, medieval justice works on a much simpler system. Someone important is angry, therefore you are in trouble. You try to protest. You tell them there must be some mistake. You say you are innocent. This has the same effect as telling rain to stop being wet. One of the guards tightens the rope until it burns your skin. Another shoves you toward the door. Behind you, your family is awake now. Your wife stares in silence. Your children are crying. Your mother begins praying. No one steps in front of armed officials because everyone in this room understands a brutal truth. If the authorities want you, they take you. That is the end of the discussion. You are pushed outside barefoot. The cold mud hits instantly. Sharp, wet, miserable. A wonderful start. Dawn has not broken yet, but a few lanterns flicker in nearby windows. Medieval villages are not large, and news travels faster than disease, which is saying something. Doors crack open. Curtains move. Faces appear. People are watching. And that may be the worst part already, because they are not looking at you like a neighbor. They are looking at you like a problem, like a criminal, like a man who has already been judged. No one knows what happened. That does not matter. Being dragged away by officials at this hour is enough. Suspicion does the rest. An old woman crosses herself. A butcher from 2 houses down shakes his head. Someone whispers. You cannot hear the words, but you do not need to. In medieval society, accusation sticks to you faster than mud. And there is plenty of mud. The guards march you through the village lane while the rope cuts deeper into your wrists. You stumble once because, again, you are barefoot, half awake, and emotionally not having your best morning. One of the men jerks you upright. No sympathy. This is not one of those arrest scenes in modern crime dramas where the suspect gets to wear shoes and preserve a little dignity. No, you get neither. The village disappears behind you as you are led toward the manor road. The sky is slowly turning gray now. Birds are starting to make noise. Under normal conditions, this would be the beginning of an ordinary day. Maybe you would be chopping wood. Maybe feeding animals. Maybe complaining about bread. But not today. Today you are discovering that innocence is a weak shield when power has already made up its mind. You keep trying to ask questions. Where are they taking you? Who accused you? When will you come back? The men ignore most of this. Finally, the bailiff gives you one answer, and it is not comforting. You'll speak when told. That sentence lands like a stone in your stomach, because it tells you everything. This is no conversation. This is no misunderstanding to be cleared up over breakfast. You have entered a machine that does not require your consent. Ahead, through the mist, you can now see the outline of stone walls. Dark, still, unfriendly in a way only medieval architecture can be. The local holding prison sits attached to the Lord's administrative building like an afterthought designed by someone who hated humanity. Which, in fairness, may be exactly what happened. You slow down, not by choice, by fear. Your feet suddenly feel heavier. Your breathing changes. The jokes in your mind stop. Because until now, some part of you believed this would sort itself out. Some little hopeful voice kept whispering, "There has been a mistake." They will ask a few questions. This will be embarrassing but temporary. But seeing those walls in the early morning fog kills that hope almost instantly. People do not get dragged to places like this for quick friendly chats. You are marched to the entrance. A guard pulls open the thick wooden door. The smell that comes from inside is difficult to describe. Damp stone, rotting straw, human waste, old sickness. It smells less like a building and more like every bad decision made by civilization. Your stomach turns, and for the first time since they burst into your home, a cold, clear thought enters your mind. This is serious, far more serious than you imagined. You are shoved forward. Behind you, the morning light is beginning to rise. Ahead of you, there is only darkness, and your first week as a medieval prisoner has officially begun. By now you are inside. Not inside a courtroom. That would suggest order. You are inside a waiting room for bad outcomes. The stone corridor is dim, wet, and narrow enough to make every footstep echo like a threat. Somewhere water is dripping. Somewhere a man coughs in a way that suggests he and his lungs are no longer on speaking terms. The guard keeps pulling you forward. You are still hoping, of course, because human beings are strangely committed to optimism even when all available evidence says they should not be. You tell yourself there will be a hearing. Someone will ask questions. Someone will realize this is a misunderstanding. Perhaps there is a sensible clerk with neat handwriting who will sort this all out. There is not. That man does not exist here. What exists here is medieval justice. And medieval justice has one major difference from modern justice. It is not built to protect the accused. It is built to protect authority. That is a much less comforting system to be trapped inside. You are finally pushed into a small chamber with a wooden table, 2 stools, and a single narrow window that lets in just enough light to make the room look depressing in higher definition. A local official sits there scratching notes into parchment. He does not look at you like a person. He looks at you like paperwork. The bailiff says your name. Then he says the accusation, or rather accusations, because apparently one misery is never enough. A missing sack of grain, unpaid dues to the manor, a complaint from a neighboring farmer, suspicion of taking wood from lord-owned land, maybe a muttered insult against a church tithe collector. At this point, they might as well add, looking suspicious near turnips. You stare at them. Half of this sounds exaggerated. The other half sounds entirely invented. You try to defend yourself immediately. You explain the grain was borrowed. The tax was delayed because your harvest failed. The wood was deadfall. The neighbor hates you because of a fence dispute. This all sounds very logical. Unfortunately, logic is not the star of today's performance. The official barely reacts. He writes, scratches, nods once, then asks the same cold question every frightened medieval prisoner eventually hears. Do you confess? You blink. Confess? To what exactly? That appears to be your job to figure out. Because in many medieval systems, confession was the cleanest, easiest, and most satisfying form of proof. Witness statements mattered. Reputation mattered. Public suspicion mattered. But nothing saved everyone time quite like the accused simply admitting guilt. Which means this room is not really arranged to discover truth. It is arranged to encourage surrender. You say no. Firmly. You are innocent. Or innocent enough. A dangerous phrase in any century. The official leans back. He studies you, not with outrage, Not with surprise, with boredom, as if he has seen this scene 1,000 times. Because he has. Every prisoner says no at first. Every prisoner thinks explanation will help. Every prisoner enters believing there is some invisible line where fairness begins. But medieval law is often less of a straight line and more of a swamp. You can step in expecting solid ground and suddenly discover you are knee-deep in trouble. The bailiff begins asking questions. Not pleasant ones. Where were you 3 nights ago? Who saw you? Why did your neighbor accuse you? Why are there reports of unpaid dues? Why did you argue with the collector last month? Each answer you give creates 2 more questions. You start noticing something deeply unhelpful. They are not trying to prove you innocent. They are trying to fit you into a version of guilt that already exists. This happened often in local feudal courts, where lords, bailiffs, and magistrates had broad control over disputes, fines, and custody. Justice was tied closely to property, order, and revenue, meaning if trouble appeared in the village, somebody was expected to answer for it, preferably somebody with fewer friends than the lord. Today, that somebody is you. You begin sweating, not because the room is warm. The room has all the warmth of a damp grave. You are sweating because you can feel the shape of this conversation. No matter what you say, it bends back toward blame. If you defend yourself too strongly, you sound desperate. If you stay quiet, you look evasive. If you admit a small mistake, they treat it like a doorway to bigger crimes. It is an excellent system if the goal is making a prisoner feel doomed. And judging by current evidence, that may indeed be the goal. The official finally sets down his quill. He sighs. Then he says the sentence that truly rearranges your insides. Until this matter is settled, you will be held. Held. Such a soft little word. So harmless. Like a blanket. Like a gentle hand. But here it means something else entirely. It means you are no longer walking out of this room. Not today. Possibly not soon. You open your mouth to object. Held where? For how long? Until whose decision? Again, medieval administration is generous with uncertainty and stingy with useful details. No one answers clearly. The bailiff simply motions to the guards. That tells you enough. This is where another ugly truth settles in. You are not entering a neat legal process with dates, rights, and scheduled hearings. You are entering the patience of men who outrank you. And patience can last a very long time when it is not your body on the stone floor. In some parts of medieval Europe, depending on place and period, guilt could be weighed through accusation, witness testimony, local reputation, ordeal traditions, or later inquisitorial questioning. None of these systems are what a modern person would call relaxing. Some literally depended on whether God would save you from boiling water or hot iron, which is an astonishing amount of confidence to place in both theology and Burns. You are beginning to understand a simple fact. Your innocence is not a shield. It is merely an opinion, and not the opinion that matters most in this building. The guards grab your arms again, this time more casually, more efficiently, like men returning a borrowed bucket. You twist once and look back at the table, at the parchment, at the official who has already moved on to the next note as if your panic is a routine sound. To him, this is administration. To you, this is the collapse of certainty. The corridor yawns dark ahead, deeper this time, less like an office, more like a throat swallowing you. And as they drag you toward the lower cells, one uncomfortable realization follows close behind. You have not been proven guilty, but that does not seem to be helping at all. The guards do not drag you back outside. That would at least involve fresh air. Instead, they turn left down a narrower corridor where the light gets weaker with every step, as if even the sun has decided this part of the building is not worth visiting. Behind you, the little clerk room disappears. Ahead of you, the stone hallway slopes downward. That is never a promising architectural choice. On some deep human level, that good things rarely happen underground. Wine maybe, potatoes occasionally. Justice? Not so much. Your wrists still burn from the rope. Your bare feet slap against cold stone slick with moisture. The walls sweat around you. Little streams of water crawl down the cracks like the castle itself has developed a slow illness. The smell changes first. At the upper level, it was mostly dampness and old smoke. Down here it becomes something thicker. Stale urine, mold, rot, human bodies left too long in bad conditions. And another smell underneath all of that. A sour, warm animal smell that tells you many frightened people have stood exactly where you are standing now. You instinctively breathe through your mouth. This is a mistake. Now you can taste it. Wonderful. One of the guards notices your face and gives the smallest grin. Apparently this hallway offers the staff free entertainment. You keep walking, or rather, you keep being pulled in the general direction of misery. The corridor twists once, then again. The lantern light shakes across the walls, revealing iron rings hammered into stone, wooden doors blackened with age, and scratch marks you decide not to think about too deeply. A scream echoes from somewhere far below. Not a dramatic scream, not a theatrical save me scream, just one sharp burst of pain, quickly swallowed by the underground dark. The kind of sound that tells you this building has a routine. You slow for half a second. One guard shoves you harder. No sightseeing. As you descend, the air gets colder but somehow heavier too. Clings to your skin. Every breath feels used already, as if several other desperate men have inhaled it first and left you the leftovers. You did not know air could feel secondhand. Now you do. At last the stairs end. You arrive in the lower holding level. Calling it a prison floor almost feels generous. It is more like a stone basement designed by someone who had read a brief description of human comfort and decided to oppose all of it. There are cells on both sides. Some are little more than barred alcoves. Some are thick wooden doors with tiny slots. And one at the far end is just a dark circular hole in the floor with an iron grate over it. You stare at that one. You wish you had not, because you know what it means even before anyone explains. Some medieval prisons used pits and oubliettes, deep confinement holes where prisoners could be lowered down and effectively forgotten for days, weeks, or worse. The name itself came to mean a place of forgetting, which is not exactly the slogan you want from temporary accommodation. You are deeply relieved when they do not take you to the hole. This relief lasts about 3 seconds. Instead, they march you toward a low wooden door swollen with damp. As they unlock it, the smell that escapes hits with such force that you physically recoil. It is not one smell. It is layers. Sweat that has soaked into straw for months. Buckets not emptied enough. Wet wool. Sickness. Feet. And the rich medieval perfume known as absolutely nobody has cleaned anything. You gag. One guard laughs. The other says, "You'll get used to it." This is perhaps the most offensive lie spoken in all of Europe. The door creaks open. Inside is a cramped stone chamber lit only by lantern spill from the hall. No window, no fire, no bed, just a floor of scattered straw darkened in patches by stains you are determined not to identify. A chain hangs from the wall. For decoration, presumably. You hesitate at the threshold. Your body does that strange thing where it understands danger before your thoughts catch up. Every instinct says do not go in there. Do not step into that darkness. Do not cross from frightened villager to imprisoned thing. Because that is what this feels like. Crossing. One of the guards solves your hesitation by pushing you squarely between the shoulders. You stumble in and nearly fall to your knees. The straw crunches underfoot. It is wet. That is upsetting. Behind you the men untie the wrist rope only to replace it with an iron cuff attached to the wall chain. A lovely upgrade from rope to metal. Very premium service. The iron is freezing against your skin. You jerk at the touch, but the guard snaps it shut with the casual confidence of a man closing a bread box. There. Now the room is officially yours. Or rather, you are officially the room's. You turn slowly, trying to make sense of the little cell. The ceiling is low enough to make standing feel awkward. The walls glisten with moisture. In one corner sits a bucket. You immediately know what that bucket is for. You immediately hate that bucket. Somewhere in the straw something tiny moves. You look down. A rat. Not a giant monster rat from a horror story. Just a normal prison rat, which is somehow worse because it suggests this is ordinary. It pauses, looks at you with complete indifference, then disappears into the wall crack like a creature already paying rent here. You swallow. The lantern light from the hallway begins to retreat as the guards step back out. "Wait," you say. Your voice sounds smaller than you expected. "When do I leave?" Neither man answers. One pulls the door shut. The other drops the wooden bar into place. The noise is heavy, final, a sound with no kindness in it. Then the footsteps fade, and suddenly you are alone. Well, mostly alone. You, the rat, the bucket, the smell, and whatever diseases are currently renting the straw. The darkness settles fast. Without the lantern, shapes blur into black corners. You can hear dripping water somewhere behind the wall. You can hear another prisoner coughing 2 cells away. You can hear chains scrape faintly, followed by a low muttering prayer. You move toward the door and press your face to the narrow crack. Nothing useful, just a strip of corridor and more darkness. You call out. No response. You call louder. Still nothing. That silence is its own answer. For a few moments, you do nothing. Not because you have accepted your situation. That would be emotionally efficient, and you are not there yet. You do nothing because your body is too busy panicking. Your breathing comes fast and shallow. Your chest feels tight. Your fingers shake against the iron cuff. Somewhere in your throat sits that unpleasant rising pressure that usually comes right before vomiting, crying, or making a very poor life decision. Possibly all three. You swallow hard. The darkness presses in around you. It is not complete darkness, not quite. A weak ribbon of gray slips under the door from the corridor, just enough to outline the bucket, the straw, and the rough shape of the opposite wall. Which is honestly worse. Complete darkness lets the imagination run wild. Dim prison darkness gives the imagination reference material. You push yourself off the wall and take one cautious step. The chain rattles. Short, much shorter than you hoped. You are not free to move around the room. You are free to move around a portion of the room. A very generous distinction. You crouch and touch the straw. Still wet, not damp. Wet in the way abandoned laundry gets wet when left in the rain. Cold moisture seeps instantly into your fingertips. You pull your hand back like the floor has insulted you personally. There will be no comfortable corner, no clean patch, no noble place to sit and reflect on your false imprisonment. There is only varying levels of unpleasant. You try to stand still and calm yourself. This does not work because the smell keeps attacking in waves. Each breath brings something new. Rotten straw, body odor, the bucket, and a sour mildew stink from the walls that feels old enough to have witnessed several dynasties. Your stomach twists. You bend over and retch. Nothing much comes out except bitter spit because, congratulations, you have been arrested before breakfast. The echo of your gagging bounces around the tiny chamber. Somewhere down the corridor, someone laughs. Not loudly. Just a tired little chuckle. The kind of laugh that says another newcomer is having exactly the normal reaction. You wipe your mouth and suddenly realize something awful. This room is used to this. This is not an exceptional punishment cell prepared just for you. This is standard. This smell, this chain, this darkness, this floor. This is simply what prison means here. Your heart pounds harder. You begin tugging at the iron cuff. Once, twice, harder. Metal bites your wrist. The ring in the wall does not move. You pull again with all the strength panic gives you. Nothing. The cuff stays shut. The wall stays solid. The prison, very rudely, remains a prison. You stop only when the metal starts scraping skin. Wonderful. Now you are trapped and bleeding slightly. An excellent use of energy. You lean back, breathing hard. Cold air slides through your sweat-soaked shirt and suddenly your whole body starts shivering. This surprises you, not because the room is warm, it has the charm of a cellar tomb, but because fear has kept you hot until now. Once the adrenaline begins to dip, the true temperature introduces itself. Stone cold rises from the floor through your bare feet. Damp air clings to your clothes. The wall behind you feels like leaning against a winter grave marker. Your teeth chatter. You wrap your arms around yourself. It helps emotionally. Physically, not much. A drop of water lands on your neck from somewhere above. You flinch so violently it is embarrassing, though thankfully only the rat is here to judge. Another drop lands near your shoulder. The ceiling leaks. Of course it does. At this point, if the room burst into flames and then somehow remained damp, you would not even be surprised. You slowly sink down into the straw because standing takes effort and panic has burned through most of your morning strength. The wet fibers press through your clothes instantly. Your body rejects this with great passion. Your body also has no alternatives. So you sit, awkwardly, miserably, like a man attending the worst banquet in Europe. Minutes pass, or maybe longer. Already time feels strange in here. Without sunlight, without bells, without other people moving through ordinary life, your sense of the morning begins to loosen. Could be dawn. Could be midday. It could be the beginning of the end of civilization. Who knows? Your ears start doing what frightened ears do, listening too hard. You hear every little sound. Dripping water, scuttling straw, a distant cough, someone muttering through cracked lips, a chain dragging, then silence, then another cough. You begin noticing the silence between noises is somehow worse than the noises themselves. It gives your thoughts room, and your thoughts are currently behaving like unpaid debt collectors. How long will you be here? Will anyone help? Did your family follow? Will the Lord actually hear your case? What if no one believes you? What if this is not days? What if this is weeks? That last thought lands with enough force to make your stomach lurch all over again. Weeks. In this room. On this floor. With this bucket. You look at the bucket. You have been trying not to think about it. Unfortunately, biology is a determined institution. Your body, under stress, is suddenly aware that it still has ordinary needs. You stare at the bucket in offended disbelief. No, surely not. Surely there is some arrangement, some guard call, some escorted dignity. There is not. You realize with slow horror that eating, sleeping, shaking, crying, and relieving yourself will all happen within arm's reach of the exact same patch of straw. Civilization has left the building. Very quickly, your throat tightens again, but this time it is not just fear. It is humiliation. An hour ago you were a villager with a name, a home, a routine, a family watching you by the hearth. Now you are a chained body in a damp hole negotiating eye contact with a toilet bucket. That is a steep morning decline by any standard. You close your eyes. Maybe if you do not move, the panic will settle. Maybe if you breathe slowly, this will feel less impossible. You inhale. Bad choice. Still smells awful. You exhale. Try again. Slowly. The shivering does not stop. The cuff still pinches. Your back aches from the wall. Your nose burns. Your mouth tastes sour. And a new realization creeps over you, colder than the room itself. This prison is not waiting for someone to punish you later. The punishment has already started. The moment that door closed, your body entered the sentence. And this has only been your first hour inside. For a few moments, you do nothing. Not because you have accepted your situation. That would be emotionally efficient, and you are not there yet. You do nothing because your body is too busy panicking. Your breathing comes fast and shallow. Your chest feels tight. Your fingers shake against the iron cuff. Somewhere in your throat sits that unpleasant rising pressure that usually comes right before vomiting, crying, or making a very poor life decision. Possibly all three. You swallow hard. The darkness presses in around you. It is not complete darkness, not quite. A weak ribbon of gray slips under the door from the corridor, just enough to outline the bucket, the straw, and the rough shape of the opposite wall, which is honestly worse. Complete darkness lets the imagination run wild. Dim prison darkness gives the imagination reference material. You push yourself off the wall and take one cautious step. The chain rattles. Short, much shorter than you hoped. You are not free to move around the room. You are free to move around a portion of the room. A very generous distinction. You crouch and touch the straw. Still wet, not damp. Wet in the way abandoned laundry gets wet when left in the rain. Cold moisture seeps instantly into your fingertips. You pull your hand back like the floor has insulted you personally. There will be no comfortable corner, no clean patch, no noble place to sit and reflect on your false imprisonment. There is only varying levels of unpleasant. You try to stand still and calm yourself. This does not work because the smell keeps attacking in waves. Each breath brings something new. Rotten straw, body odor, the bucket, and a sour mildew stink from the walls that feels old enough to have witnessed several dynasties. Your stomach twists. You bend over and retch. Nothing much comes out except bitter spit because, congratulations, you have been arrested before breakfast. The echo of your gagging bounces around the tiny chamber. Somewhere down the corridor, someone laughs. Not loudly, just a tired little chuckle. The kind of laugh that says another newcomer is having exactly the normal reaction. You wipe your mouth and suddenly realize something awful. This room is used to this. This is not an exceptional punishment cell prepared just for you. This is standard. This smell, this chain, this darkness, this floor. This is simply what prison means here. Your heart pounds harder. You begin tugging at the iron cuff. Once, twice, harder. Metal bites your wrist. The ring in the wall does not move. You pull again with all the strength panic gives you. Nothing. The cuff stays shut. The wall stays solid. The prison, very rudely, remains a prison. You stop only when the metal starts scraping skin. Wonderful. Now you are trapped and bleeding slightly. An excellent use of energy. You lean back, breathing hard. Cold air slides through your sweat-soaked shirt and suddenly your whole body starts shivering. This surprises you. Not because the room is warm, it has the charm of a cellar tomb, but because fear has kept you hot until now. Once the adrenaline begins to dip, the true temperature introduces itself. Stone cold rises from the floor through your bare feet. Damp air clings to your clothes. The wall behind you feels like leaning against a winter grave marker. Your teeth chatter. You wrap your arms around yourself. It helps emotionally. Physically, not much. A drop of water lands on your neck from somewhere above. You flinch so violently it is embarrassing, though thankfully only the rat is here to judge. Another drop lands near your shoulder. The ceiling leaks. Of course it does. At this point, if the room burst into flames and then somehow remained damp, you would not even be surprised. You slowly sink down into the straw because standing takes effort and panic has burned through most of your morning strength. The wet fibers press through your clothes instantly. Your body rejects this with great passion. Your body also has no alternatives. So you sit, awkwardly, miserably, like a man attending the worst banquet in Europe. Minutes pass, or maybe longer. Already time feels strange in here. Without sunlight, without bells, without other people moving through ordinary life, your sense of the morning begins to loosen. Could be dawn. Could be midday. It could be the beginning of the end of civilization. Who knows? Your ears start doing what frightened ears do, listening too hard. You hear every little sound. Dripping water, scuttling straw, a distant cough, someone muttering through cracked lips, a chain dragging, then silence, then another cough. You begin noticing the silence between noises is somehow worse than the noises themselves. It gives your thoughts room. And your thoughts are currently behaving like unpaid debt collectors. How long will you be here? Will anyone help? Did your family follow? Will the Lord actually hear your case? What if no one believes you? What if this is not days? What if this is weeks? That last thought lands with enough force to make your stomach lurch all over again. Weeks. In this room. On this floor. With this bucket. You look at the bucket. You have been trying not to think about it. Unfortunately, biology is a determined institution. Your body, under stress, is suddenly aware that it still has ordinary needs. You stare at the bucket in offended disbelief. No, surely not. Surely there is some arrangement, some guard call, some escorted dignity. There is not. You realize with slow horror that eating, sleeping, shaking, crying, and relieving yourself will all happen within arm's reach of the exact same patch of straw. Civilization has left the building. Very quickly, your throat tightens again, but this time it is not just fear. It is humiliation. An hour ago you were a villager with a name, a home, a routine, a family watching you by the hearth. Now you are a chained body in a damp hole negotiating eye contact with a toilet bucket. That is a steep morning decline by any standard. You close your eyes. Maybe if you do not move, the panic will settle. Maybe if you breathe slowly, this will feel less impossible. You inhale. Bad choice. Still smells awful. You exhale. Try again. Slowly. The shivering does not stop. The cuff still pinches. Your back aches from the wall. Your nose burns. Your mouth tastes sour. And a new realization creeps over you, colder than the room itself. This prison is not waiting for someone to punish you later. The punishment has already started. The moment that door closed, your body entered the sentence. And this has only been your first hour inside. You spend some time trying to convince yourself that solitude might be manageable. Lonely, yes. Terrifying, certainly. Smelly beyond human rights, absolutely. But manageable. Then you hear breathing. Not yours. Someone else's. You freeze. The sound comes from the far left corner where the darkness is thickest. Slow, wet, uneven breathing like a man sleeping badly inside a sack. Your eyes strain. At first you see nothing. Then a shape shifts. A human shape. You jolt backward so fast the chain snaps tight against your wrist. There is a man in here. He has been in here the entire time. Wonderful. Because apparently prison was not miserable enough without surprise roommates. He slowly lifts his head from the straw. In the weak corridor light, you can just make out a beard that looks like it has lost all negotiations with hygiene, and two dull eyes staring in your direction. Neither of you speaks. You are not sure what the polite greeting is in this situation. Good morning, fellow captive? He coughs instead. A deep, ugly cough. The kind that sounds expensive in medical terms. Then he spits into the straw. That patch of floor is now spiritually dead forever. You realize with a sinking feeling that the cell is larger than you first thought because panic made you blind. The chain allows only one side of movement, but the far corner, his corner, stretches beyond your reach. So yes, you have a cellmate, possibly several diseases, and very limited personal space. As your eyes adjust further, more details appear. His ankle is chained too. His clothes are torn. One cheek is swollen purple. He smells like a wet goat that owes money. He studies you the way tired men study weather, mild annoyance, no surprise. New? He asks. You nod. An excellent conversational start. He grunts as if confirming a theory. Then says, "You'll stop gagging by tonight." That is not encouraging. You ask how long he has been here. He shrugs. Some days. Some days? That means he does not know. Or stopped caring. Neither answer is great. You ask what he did. He laughs. Not a happy laugh. Depends who you ask. That tells you nearly everything. Medieval prisons often mix debtors, thieves, drunks, local troublemakers, and accused criminals together with little meaningful separation. Jail was less a classified correctional system and more a damp holding pile of unwanted humans. You stare at him. He stares back. Then he lies down again like this introduction has exhausted the social calendar. And now the room feels smaller. Much smaller. Because this is no longer a private disaster. It is a shared one. You become aware of every little sound he makes. His coughing. His scratching. His shifting in the straw. At one point he mutters in his sleep. At another point he groans like a haunted floorboard. You cannot relax because there is another living stranger breathing prison air 2 body lengths away. And that means one terrifying thing. Whatever sickness this place breeds, you are breathing it together. You tuck your knees closer. The chain rattles. The rat returns. Your cellmate does not even look at it. Clearly the rat outranks you in terms of emotional adjustment. This is the moment it truly settles in. You are not in isolation. You are in the medieval version of shared budget housing, except with less comfort and more plague potential. And somehow that makes everything worse. At some point your body begins asking for rest. This is rude, because rest suggests conditions remotely suitable for being horizontal without losing dignity. Those conditions do not exist. Still, exhaustion is patient. You have been dragged from bed before dawn, marched, questioned, chained, panicked, humiliated, and introduced to a stranger who coughs like a dying accordion. Naturally, your eyelids start growing heavy, so you attempt the impossible. You try to sleep. First you lean against the wall. Terrible. The stone is wet and steals heat directly from your spine. Then you try curling on the straw. Also terrible. The floor beneath it is uneven, hard, and somehow every stalk seems personally sharpened. You roll once and something tiny crawls across your wrist. You slap at it instantly. Louse. Maybe flee. Maybe prison itself becoming sentient. Either way, not ideal. You sit back up. Your cellmate, annoyingly, appears to be sleeping through all of this with the dead calm of a man who has accepted his relationship with suffering. You are not there yet. You close your eyes. A drip lands nearby. Then another. Then another. The ceiling leaks in no rhythm at all, which means your brain cannot ignore it. Drip. Pause. Drip, drip. Long silence. Drip. This continues forever. Then there are the sounds from the corridor. A chain dragging. Someone coughing. A distant moan. Wood creaking. A guard's boots. Somebody muttering prayer. Somebody else cursing. It is like trying to sleep in the basement of despair. And then there is the smell. You thought perhaps the nose would adapt. It does not. The bucket remains offensively active. The straw remains sour. Your cellmate remains biologically concerning. You bury your face in your sleeve. Now your sleeve smells like prison too. Excellent. You drift for maybe a minute at a time before jolting awake. Each tiny noise feels urgent. Each movement of the rat sounds larger in darkness. Your muscles never unclench. The chain prevents comfortable turning. The cold prevents warmth. The fear prevents surrender. This is not sleep. This is your body losing arguments with exhaustion in short, miserable bursts. And by what you guess is the first nightfall, though honestly it may still be afternoon, you realize something grim. You are going to be tired in a way that no amount of lying down can fix. The first true wave of hunger arrives slowly. At first it is just emptiness, then cramping, then that hollow twisting sensation that makes every smell somehow worse. You have not eaten since yesterday evening, unless panic counts as nutrition. Your stomach growls loudly enough that your cellmate opens one eye. Wait till the broth, he says. Then he closes his eye again. That sentence somehow lowers morale. Hours pass. Maybe. Finally footsteps come. You sit upright instantly. Food. Blessed food. A guard appears at the hatch and slides in a wooden bowl with all the grace of disposing scraps. It splashes across the straw. You crawl toward it like a desperate medieval raccoon. Inside is grayish liquid. Floating in it are 2 vegetable fragments and what might once have been a bean. This is not a meal. This is a rumor of a meal. Still, you drink, because your body has dropped standards at record speed. It is lukewarm, salty, thin, tastes faintly of old onion and bucket. You hate that you are grateful. There is also a crust of bread so hard it could plausibly defend a castle. You chew. Your jaw files a complaint. Medieval prisoners were often fed minimally unless family paid extra or the jailer chose otherwise, which means survival depended less on nutrition and more on your digestive system's willingness to cooperate with medieval neglect. You finish in seconds. It does nothing. Your stomach now feels insulted rather than fed. You lick the bowl anyway. No shame remains. By the time the guard takes it back, hunger has become your new roommate. A quieter roommate than the coughing man, but far more persistent. Not long after the broth comes thirst. Broth, as it turns out, creates confidence your body cannot sustain. Your mouth stays dry. Your throat scratches. You ask for water when the guard returns. He slides in a dented cup. Inside is cloudy liquid. You stare at it. This is water in the same way swamp puddles are ambitious. Still, thirst wins. You drink. It tastes stale, metallic, and vaguely wooden, as though stored in a barrel that had once held sadness. Your cellmate laughs softly. Don't drink too fast. A comforting sentence no prisoner wants to hear. Why? He scratches his beard. Because sometimes it comes back up. You stop mid-swallow. Wonderful. Shared water in medieval holding cells was often poorly stored, contaminated, and drawn from sources no modern stomach would greet with enthusiasm. Clean sanitation was not exactly the age's strongest hobby. An hour later your stomach begins to churn. Not violently, just enough to introduce dread. Your insides slosh uneasily with the broth-water combination. You shift against the wall. Cold sweat beads on your neck. Your cellmate notices and gives a tiny nod that says yes, that happens. You suddenly understand why the bucket exists, and why it was placed within arm's reach. The prison is not merely starving you. It is slowly introducing your body to a menu of weakness. Bad water, bad food, bad air, bad sleep. Each one small. Together, catastrophic. You swallow hard and press your forehead to the damp stone. You have not even completed a full day. Already your body feels less reliable, less yours, and a deeply uncomfortable thought arrives. If simple drinking water is a gamble in this place, surviving a week may be far more ambitious than you first imagined. By now, prison is no longer something around you. It is something on you. This is an important and deeply upsetting change. First, you notice the smell, then the cold, then the hunger. But after enough hours in damp straw, your skin begins filing its own complaints. It starts with itching, a little at the wrist, then the ankle, then behind the neck. You scratch without thinking. For one brief hopeful second, that helps. Then it gets worse. You scratch again, and again. Soon both hands are busy, as if your body has suddenly developed a passionate interest in itself. Your cellmate opens one eye. "Fleas," he mutters. Then, after a pause, "Maybe lice. Wonderful. A 2-for-1 prison welcome package." You stop scratching long enough to inspect your sleeve in the dim light. Tiny dark specks move along the cloth. You recoil. Those are alive. They are on you. They were probably on the straw first, which somehow makes this feel less like an attack and more like a property transfer. You slap at your arms. You brush your legs. You rake your fingers through your hair. This does almost nothing except make the itching feel more personal. There is no washing basin, no clean shirt, no magical anti-vermin medieval body spray. Just you, your skin, and a small republic of biting creatures treating you like newly acquired farmland. The worst part is not the bites. The worst part is the realization that you cannot get away from them. You can swat one. 10 more remain. You can shift to another patch of straw. That patch has cousins. You can stand. The fleas have legs and ambition. The prison has now entered your clothing. You feel one crawl near your waist and physically shudder. This is no longer incarceration. This is occupancy. Your cellmate scratches constantly too, though with the numb efficiency of long practice. At one point he reaches into his beard, pinches something, flicks it away, and goes back to breathing. You decide not to ask questions. Some answers are not enriching. Hours drag. The itching continues. Your skin grows red where fingernails scrape too hard. Small bites rise along your forearms. Sweat mixes with grime. Your hair feels greasy. Your shirt sticks to your back. You smell different now. Less like a frightened villager and more like a damp, forgotten object. The prison is coding you, claiming you. You try to sit still and ignore it. Impossible. A flea jumps. You slap. A louse crawls. You scratch. The rat returns and rustles beside the bucket. Even he seems more settled than you. At this point, you are sharing the cell not with one stranger, but with an entire ecosystem. And every member of that ecosystem seems to be eating better than you are. You stare at your arms, blotched and dirty, and realize with a little pulse of disgust, your body is no longer a person's body. It is becoming prison property. The next time footsteps come, you feel a spark of hope. This is your first mistake. Hope remains an expensive habit in here. A man stops outside the cell. Not the same guard from before. This one is older, wider, and carries a ring of keys large enough to qualify as blunt weaponry. He smells faintly of ale. His beard is trimmed in the style of someone who believes effort is optional. This, you gather, is the jailer. Now, in modern life, the word jailer might suggest a professional employee with duties, regulations, and perhaps a basic understanding of hygiene. This man suggests none of those things. He peers through the slot, looks at you, looks at your cellmate, then says, "Still alive." Your cellmate grunts. Apparently that counts as attendance. You move closer to the door. Sir, you say quickly, because politeness feels like your last surviving currency. How long am I being kept here? The jailer shrugs. Till they say otherwise. Who is they? When will they say otherwise? How long is otherwise? He does not seem interested in any of these useful subtopics. Instead, he unlocks the hatch and tosses in another bowl. Less food this time. You catch it barely. Please, you say. Can I send word to my family? He pauses. At last, a negotiation face. The man scratches his beard and studies you with fresh interest. Can. Your heart lifts. Then he adds, for coin. Of course. You blink. You do not have coin. They dragged you from bed barefoot like a criminal potato. The jailer nods as if confirming your stupidity. Then no message. He starts to leave. You panic. What about more straw? A blanket? Cleaner water? He actually laughs. A dry, ugly little laugh from the hallway. All possible, he says. Another pause. For coin. There it is. The prison's hidden rule. Nothing is free except suffering. Historically, many medieval jailers were poorly paid and expected to extract fees from prisoners for food, bedding, irons, letters, visitors, or minor comforts. Meaning the man holding your keys was often less a caretaker and more a damp innkeeper with moral flexibility. You grip the bars. I have nothing. He gives a small nod. Yes, I can see that. Then he walks away. Keys jangling, boots fading. And with him goes the last polite illusion that someone here is responsible for your well-being. No one is monitoring your health. No one is tracking your comfort. No one cares if the straw is wet, the water foul, or the fleas hold municipal elections in your trousers. You are not a patient. You are not a guest. You are not even particularly expensive livestock. You are an inconvenience behind a locked door. Your cellmate chews his bread slowly. Told you, he says. You stare at the empty hallway. The jailer had answers, just not any that benefited the poor. This means one horrifying thing. If your family does not know where you are, if they do not bring money, if they do not plead on your behalf, you may simply continue existing here as a forgotten source of minor income. And suddenly the chain on your wrist feels tighter. Because now you understand. The man with the keys is not keeping you alive out of duty. He is keeping you here because misery pays. Sometime later, hours perhaps, a guard returns. This time he opens the door. You almost cry from seeing an open exit. Then two men step in. Neither of them looks friendly enough to be delivering good news. Up, one says. You stand immediately. The chain is removed. Your wrist tingles with numb relief. For a wild, hopeful moment you think, release. This is your second mistake. They march you not upward to daylight, but sideways to another chamber. Smaller than the clerk room. Colder. There is a stool in the middle. You are sat on it. One guard stands behind. The bailiff from earlier appears with parchment. Ah yes, administrative suffering. He begins asking questions again. Same topics. Same accusations. Grain. Taxes. Wood. Insults. Neighbors. You answer again. Carefully. Clearly. You explain. You deny. You reason. He writes very little. That is concerning. After several minutes, he sets the parchment down and folds his hands. Confess, he says, just like that. No discussion. No dramatic build-up. As if confession were a coat you had forgotten to put on. I have nothing to confess. The bailiff exhales through his nose. Patient man hearing familiar nonsense. You will remain here until this matter is settled. I am innocent. Then say what happened. I did. His eyes narrow. And now you finally see the mechanism. This is not information gathering. This is pressure. They already have statements, complaints, rumors, whatever loose village gossip has been bundled into a case against you. What they want now is alignment. Your words matching their version. Because once a prisoner confesses, everything becomes tidy. No more debate. No more chasing witnesses. No more uncertainty. Just guilt, signed and delivered. One guard places a hand on your shoulder. Heavy. Not violent yet, but suggestive. You suddenly understand that comfort in prison is negotiable. Cooperation may improve things. Resistance may not. The bailiff leans closer. "Think carefully," he says. Such a gentle phrase, spoken by men in a room with no witnesses. You swallow. This is no torture chamber with spinning wheels and dramatic spikes. It does not need to be. Simple fear is doing excellent work. You imagine returning to the wet cell, the hunger, the fleas, the dark, and perhaps worse if they decide you are difficult. Your mind does dangerous arithmetic. Would a small confession help? Could you admit something harmless? Would that shorten this? This is exactly the trap. The prison is not just holding your body. It is softening your resistance. Every cold hour makes surrender look more reasonable. The bailiff watches your face. He knows. He has seen this calculation before. Finally, he straightens. "Take him back," he says. No beating, no shouting, just disappointment postponed. Somehow that is worse, because now you know the questions are not finished. And neither is the pressure. Back in the cell, something has changed. Not the straw, still vile. Not the smell, still criminal. Not the cellmate, still coughing. What changed is your hearing. Now you listen differently, because now every sound might be a warning. A bootstep might mean questioning. A key might mean another interrogation. A scream might mean what happens to men who refuse too long. So your ears stay awake even when your body wants collapse. And once you begin truly listening to a medieval prison, you discover it is never quiet. There is always something. Someone weeping softly. Someone whispering prayers over and over until the words become meaningless. Someone hacking mucus from deep in the lungs. Chains scraping stone. A bucket shifting. A guard cursing. Far away, a sudden yell. Then silence. Then dripping. Always dripping. At first these are just noises. Then they become stories. That man crying. How long has he been here? That woman praying 2 cells down. What was she accused of? That scream. Did someone confess? Did someone refuse? You do not know. Your mind fills every blank with the worst option available. Sleep becomes impossible because the prison itself narrates horror around you in fragments. No clocks. No sunlight. No proof of passing time. Only sounds. Repeated. Endless. Your cellmate snores briefly, then wakes coughing. You jump at every movement. At one point, footsteps stop outside your door and remain there. You hold your breath. Nothing happens. Then the footsteps continue. You exhale shakily. This is what your mind has become. A rabbit hiding inside a drum. Hours of this wear grooves into your nerves. By now you are tired enough to hallucinate little things in the dark. Shapes shifting, whispers that may just be water, scratches that may just be rats. Or may not. Who can say? The prison gives no confirmation, only uncertainty. And uncertainty, you are learning, is louder than any scream. Because when the body is chained and the room is small, the imagination has nowhere to run except deeper inside itself. And that is where the true noise begins. By what you think is the second or third day, your body stops feeling like a useful machine. It becomes a collection of complaints tied together by skin. Your neck aches from sleeping upright. Your lower back throbs from the wall. Your legs cramp because there is nowhere to stretch them properly. Even your jaw hurts from clenching every time footsteps pass. You try standing for a while. Bad idea. Your knees wobble almost instantly. You sit back down. Also a bad idea. There are now permanent bruises on your hips from the stone beneath the straw. So you alternate between 2 uncomfortable positions like a man choosing which part of himself should suffer first. The lack of movement is doing strange things. Your feet feel numb in the cold. Your fingers stiffen at night. When you uncurl too quickly, muscles seize and lock. You hiss through your teeth and wait for the spasm to pass. Your cellmate watches with no sympathy. Gets worse, he says. You are beginning to hate how often he is correct. The iron cuff rubs your wrist raw. Each shift grinds skin against metal. A red swollen groove has formed there now, sticky at the edges. Nothing dramatic, Just the slow kind of wound that becomes dangerous when mixed with prison dirt. You try not to touch it. You fail. Everything itches, aches, or throbs. Even breathing feels heavier because the air down here is permanently damp, as if each lungful arrives pre-chewed. Then there is weakness. That creeping weakness. Not sudden collapse. Worse, a gradual draining. You reach for the bowl when food comes and notice your arm feels slower. You stand and feel lightheaded. You scratch your hair and your shoulder trembles from the effort. Bad food plus bad sleep plus bad water equals a body quietly resigning. This prison is not attacking you all at once. It is reducing you in installments. And every hour your muscles seem less interested in helping. Soon, even sitting upright begins to feel like labor. You are no longer preserving strength. You are spending what little remains. Pain, you discover, is only one half of prison. The other half is embarrassment. Persistent, sticky embarrassment. The kind that strips layers off your dignity one miserable moment at a time. It begins with the bucket. By now you have used it. There is no elegant way to phrase that. You resisted for as long as human biology allowed. Human biology won. Your cellmate politely looked away, which somehow made it worse. Because nothing says, "my life has gone wrong," quite like trying to preserve modesty while squatting beside a stranger in a stone hole. The smell afterward becomes a new resident. You try pushing the bucket farther. This changes nothing except geometry. Then food arrives while the bucket still sits there. Excellent. Eating and bodily functions now share a floor plan. Civilization truly was a brief experiment. But humiliation spreads beyond that. Guards peer through the hatch and smirk. Once, two of them open the door just to unchain your cellmate for questioning. And both glance at you sitting dirty, hunched, hair wild, scratching your neck like a barn animal. One snorts. The other says, "He looks settled." Then they laugh. You were a villager 3 days ago. Now you are prison entertainment. Your clothes are stained. Your feet are black with grime. Your beard, if you have one, is beginning to grow unevenly. Your skin smells of straw, sweat, and fear. You catch your reflection once in a puddle by the doorway when they briefly move you. You barely recognize the man staring back. He looks smaller, not physically, socially, like someone the world has stepped over. This is part of the punishment. Whether intentional or not, prison keeps teaching the same lesson. You no longer control how you are seen. Others decide that. Guards see a captive. Officials see a case. The jailer sees unpaid coin. Even your cellmate sees a newcomer slowly being processed into the same dull misery. And you begin seeing yourself through their eyes. That may be the most humiliating part of all. Because somewhere between the bucket, the fleas, and the mocking guards, you stop feeling accused. You start feeling reduced. The coughing gets worse. Not yours. Your cellmate hacks into the straw so often now that each fit seems to shake loose another piece of him. At first you found it annoying. Now you find it educational. Because he is a walking example of what this place does. His lips are dry. His eyes sink deeper. His skin has that pale gray tone of bread dough left in shadow. Whatever he brought into the cell or caught in the cell is winning. You begin monitoring your own body with growing paranoia. Is your throat scratchier? Are you warmer than before? Why is your stomach still turning? Was that dizziness from standing too fast or the beginning of fever? The answer is impossible to know because every symptom in prison overlaps with every other misery. Bad sleep feels like sickness. Bad water feels like sickness. Starvation feels like sickness. And eventually, of course, actual sickness arrives. You wake shivering one cycle, day, night. Impossible to say, even though the room is no colder than usual. Your stomach cramps sharply. Your mouth tastes foul. When the water comes, you drink and immediately regret it. The bucket becomes busier than anyone would prefer. Your cellmate gives you a look that says yes. There it is. There what is? The prison taking hold. In cramped medieval confinement, disease needed very little invitation. Contaminated water, close air, vermin bites, human waste, infected wounds. Every feature of this place collaborates like a well-run business. You press your head to the wall. Sweat chills on your neck. Your insides feel unstable. You try to slow your breathing. No use. Your body is now fighting on too many fronts. And the terrifying thing is this: there is no doctor coming. No clean linens. No broth specially prepared for the weak. If you become ill here, illness simply joins the room. Another roommate. Another smell. Another threat. You look at your cellmate's hollow face and realize he may not be the warning. He may be the preview. By now you understand ordinary prison misery. Then they remind you there are upgraded options. The guards come again. Not for food. Not for water. For you. This time they drag you to a lower chamber you had not yet seen. You dislike it immediately. There are ropes. A table. Hooks in the wall. Nothing theatrical, nothing museum-worthy. Just practical objects arranged by men who believe discomfort speeds honesty. The bailiff is there. He looks tired of your innocence. That is enough delay, he says. A phrase no prisoner enjoys. He asks the same questions. Again. You answer. Again. He frowns. One guard tightens fingers around your shoulder. Another takes your wrist. Not hurting, just showing future possibilities. Your pulse goes wild. Because this room does not need actual torture to work. Suggestion is enough. You can imagine the next step perfectly. Sleep deprivation, beatings, stress positions, hanging by bound arms. All the simple medieval methods of making the body negotiate against the mind. The bailiff watches fear move across your face. He knows he has entered the profitable stage. Confess, he says quietly. There it is again. That soft word. You feel your resistance wobble. Not because you are guilty, because you are tired. Hungry men confess. Cold men confess. Sick men confess. Men who have listened to screams in the dark confess. The prison has been preparing you for this room since the first morning. You finally understand the system. The dungeon weakens. The interrogation harvests. You whisper that you have done nothing. The bailiff studies you a moment longer, then nods to the guards. Not today. Back to the cell. Relief floods you, followed instantly by dread. Because now there is a lower chamber in your imagination. And you know they can bring you back. After enough misery, a strange desire appears. Not freedom, certainty. You would like freedom, obviously. But even a clear punishment begins sounding attractive compared to this endless maybe. Maybe tomorrow they release you. Maybe tomorrow they question you again. Maybe tomorrow your family arrives. Maybe tomorrow they forget. Maybe tomorrow they hurt you. Every tomorrow contains 5 different disasters and no schedule. You ask the jailer once more how long. He shrugs once more. You ask a guard if there will be a hearing. He laughs once more. Nobody gives dates because dates suggest structure. This place runs on waiting. And waiting is acid. It eats thought. Without a known sentence, the mind cannot brace itself. A week in prison sounds survivable if you know it is 1 week. 1 month sounds survivable if there is an end marked somewhere. But until decided? That stretches like dark road with no milestones. You begin inventing timelines. Surely by tomorrow. Surely by the next meal. Surely after the next questioning. Each invented hope collapses quietly. Your cellmate notices. Stop counting, he says. You ask why. He closes his eyes. Because prison counts slower than you do. That is perhaps the wisest and most depressing thing anyone has said so far. Soon you stop trying to guess the day. Morning, evening, night, these words lose shape underground. There is only before food and after food. Before footsteps and after footsteps. Before panic and after panic. You are suspended in administrative fog. And uncertainty, more than hunger, begins hollowing you out. Because pain can be endured. But undefined pain, that multiplies in the imagination. At this point, let us be honest. You are not doing well. You have slept badly, eaten badly, drunk badly, smelled badly, and thought badly for what feels like an eternity compressed into less than a week. Your wrist is raw. Your stomach is unreliable. Your muscles tremble. Your clothes itch. Your mind jumps at every key. The bucket has ruined all remaining standards. Your cellmate is either dying slowly or simply demonstrating prison's preferred aesthetic. And through all of this, no one has actually sentenced you to anything. You are just being kept. That is the crucial detail. Modern people imagine prison as bars, routines, meals, paperwork, maybe a bleak cot. Medieval imprisonment is different. It is a controlled collapse. No warmth, no sanitation, no legal reassurance, no medical support, no privacy, no sleep, no certainty. Every basic thing your body uses to remain stable has been peeled away one damp layer at a time. Could someone survive longer than a week? Yes, some did. But that is not the same as remaining intact. Because by day 7, the average modern person would not be thinking about noble innocence or legal principles. They would be thinking about warmth, clean water, silence, a bed, one full breath of fresh air. They would confess to things they had never heard of if it promised one uninterrupted night without fleas. That is how prison wins. Not always through chains, not always through torture, but through subtraction. Take enough comfort, enough clarity, enough human dignity, and eventually the prisoner stops arguing with the system. He just wants one thing to stop. So when people say you would not last a week as a medieval prisoner, they do not only mean death. Though death was certainly available, they mean something quieter, something more likely. By the 7th day, cold, hunger, vermin, sickness, shame, and uncertainty would have worn down the neat modern idea of yourself. The person dragged from bed before sunrise would still technically be alive. But the confident person who believed fairness would save him, that person would already be gone. And in a medieval dungeon, that is usually the first thing to die.